So, after a few weeks of being absent, I am today talking to Robert Breedlove, who has written many articles and created a YouTube channel called What is Money? He is foremost known as a Bitcoin philosopher because of his ability to simplify deep and complex concepts, making him the perfect guest to my podcast. Robert also works at Swan Bitcoin, so we will be talking about that as well as changes in society and how it can influence our education as teenagers. So let us just get on with the interview. So you have created a YouTube channel called What is Money? Why did you just decide to start this series?
Yeah, I think that after spending a few years trying to talk to people about Bitcoin, um, and especially when number is not going up, I think people really, it was very easy to lay on the derision and just have people look at you like you're crazy or wearing a tinfoil hat as you're I guess going down the proverbial rabbit hole, describing all the things Bitcoin fixes and how it impacts money and government and all of this. Um, in that process, where I was in the business, I was running a fund, so I had investors. I was educating them a lot, talking about this a lot. I found that you just meet a lot of natural defensiveness, in that money is something that's very deeply rooted, or at least deeply seated next to someone's identity. Especially, we have nationalized currencies today, so many people, I think, associate it with their national identity. I think, strong dollar, strong America, strong country, rah rah. Um, it's also something, when you're talking about Bitcoin, you're talking about a non-state money,
Yeah.
and it's very hard for people to get their head around. Like, who backs it up? Where are the guys with? What about the guys with the guns? Clearly, they're never going to let it happen. Where are Bitcoin's guys with the guns? How does it work? Um, so there's just a lot of resistance in trying to educate people about Bitcoin, and it's something that's so far outside of our scope, most people's scope on reality, that it just takes a lot of time to digest and understand. So what I thought would be a nice way of kind of judoing the whole situation, or pulling an inception move, was that instead of trying to cram a bunch of this, again, because to understand Bitcoin, you need to understand so many things. It's very multidisciplinary. So it's, game theory, computer science, Austrian economics, cryptography, internet, protocols, social layers, all these things, this confluence of domains you have to really get a good grip on to comprehend Bitcoin. Instead of trying to force feed that to people, because I just don't think you can. People have to really, they have to pique their own curiosity, and then they need to do their own homework. They need to study all the work that's been done on it. It's not just written works about Bitcoin per se, but all the tangential things, like actually reading Austrian economics and history of the internet, cypherpunks, these things that help you see the long journey that led to Bitcoin. People have to do that work themselves. I guess it's maybe kind of a cliche. It's kind of, you need a proof of work to understand Bitcoin. So long answer to simple question, but I just found that question, what is money, to be deceivingly simple. A great way to incept this idea into people. If you just say, look, don't believe me, don't believe anything I'm telling you, just go and ask yourself and do your own homework. What is money? Just keep asking that question and see what you find. And if you actually do the homework and you actually really dig into it and, put your self-teacher hat on and, maybe lean on the expertise of a few people you find in social media or what have you, or read a few books, I think you inevitably arrive at Bitcoin if you ask that question long enough, deeply enough, seriously enough. And so I figured if I'm going to be educating people about Bitcoin, what else can I call my show except the thing that can, the device that I use to pull this little inception move to get people to see the light, so to speak, about Bitcoin. So it's a little bit unusual, but I think it's cool. And I hope people see it and ask themselves that question: why the heck did he name the show the What is Money Show? And it just becomes one of those things that's on the tip of people's tongue more often. And I hope it helps broaden Bitcoin awareness.
And you did like 9 episodes with Michael Saylor. Why did you choose him to be like your guest?
Serendipity is the short answer. I just had this formative idea of doing the show on my mind. A lot of people, my path into Bitcoin was I've been a lifelong reader. And then when I got into the Bitcoin business, I started writing a lot more. Because again, writing about what I had learned, going down the rabbit hole, and also writing investor communications and things like that. Off of that writing, I started to be invited onto podcasts and media channels to talk about it. And people started to enjoy hearing me talk about it. They enjoyed my interviews. I was getting a lot of good feedback. And I guess I was just listening to the market. People were like, you need to do more of this. Sending me questions all the time. I'm getting DMs and emails. People like, do a video on this, talk about this. The general discovery was that I think 99% of people prefer audio or video content consumption to reading. And it sounds kind of obvious, but for me, I prefer to read. I don't consume video hardly at all. I'll consume audio when I'm doing something else that I can't read. If I'm working out or walking or something like that in the car. But it was just a bit of a realization. It's like, hey, if you want to actually be about Bitcoin education, then you have to go where the audiences are. And the audiences are consuming audio and video. So I had just this formative idea that I wanted to do more, and that the obvious low-hanging fruit there is start a podcast / YouTube channel. And so it was just kind of an idea bouncing around in my head. I'm like, all right, what would I do to differentiate myself? And my thought was, I had this hypothesis I've discussed before, but when the Gutenberg printing press was invented, we collapsed the cost of information distribution. So it used to be very expensive to get a book. A book was a luxury. Only the rich had them. And therefore, 90% of the world's population was uneducated, poor. And the church used that asymmetry to control populations. They controlled the scriptorium. They produced the books. So they became the dominant institution in the world because they had a monopoly on knowledge, effectively. But one simple invention, which was actually a composite invention, the Gutenberg printing press was not a single breakthrough. Gutenberg combined, like Satoshi, 4 or 5 different other innovations into one thing, and that became the printing press that, collapsed the cost of information access and distribution, which led to a rise in the quality and variety of thinking in the world, which caused the world to overthrow the church as the dominant institution, leading us into the Enlightenment, into the scientific age, industrialism, so on and so forth. So all of this modern lap of luxury that we all enjoy, that we've inherited from our forebears, was really due to that, which is decrease the cost of information access. And all of a sudden, people could get more eyes on information, more knowledge, more ideas, iterating more quickly, more innovation. The whole thing goes into a flywheel effect and throws us into the modern age. So I think my hypothesis here is that the digital age is another one of those, where we've once again collapsed the cost of information distribution, and therefore we're going to have a commensurate boom in quality and variety of thinking. And I think you're seeing that a little bit. You're seeing the Joe Rogans and Jordan Petersons, the intellectual dark web of the world, forming these enclaves of of new and interesting thought. There's a lot of critical thought about existing institutions. And so to best take advantage of that technological advancement, the way I thought I would differentiate myself is to just do extremely long form discussions. I just wanted to sit down with someone, go to first principles on whatever topic we're going to talk about, typically related to money, because this is the What is Money show, but money touches everything. So it doesn't really constrict the scope of things you can talk about, because money quite literally touches everything in the world of human affairs, at least. And it just so happened I was having these thoughts and like, oh, who would I talk to? And it was just about that time that Saylor announced his entry into Bitcoin, and he sent me a DM with the announcement, and we just got to talking, and did a little homework on the guy. Super impressed with him. I wasn't aware of his book, The Mobile Wave, at the time. I've since read it. I mean, he gets it. He's a tech guy. He understands networks. He understands all of that multiple disciplinary kaleidoscope of concepts you need to get to understand Bitcoin. He gets it. He was just, I think, missing one of them. Like, he was missing the monetary piece, maybe before COVID, or he hadn't taken the time to look at it. Once he looked at it, it was like clicked, crystallized. And now, I mean, the guy is a freaking beast. He's just a dynamo. He's like probably, in my opinion, the greatest ambassador we have for Bitcoin today. Meaning specifically, it's like, okay, you can be a Bitcoin educator, you can talk about it, you can educate, you can answer questions, you can engage, but your money always talks louder than your words, right? Actions speak louder than words. And the magnitude with which he has gone into the market, and the way he's done it strategically, and the way he has been an ambassador for the space has just been stunning over the past year, less than a year, 8 months, I guess. And so, sorry, another long answer to a short question. It was just serendipity. I was just gonna do this thing, had these ideas flowing. He sent me a message, we started talking. He's a very philosophical guy as well, as you can tell by his Twitter page, or if you've seen any interviews with him, very deep and interesting thinker. And so I asked him to help me launch the show. He agreed, and it's been a success. And I just finished recording with my second guest, Jeff Booth, so author of The Price of Tomorrow. And we did a similar long form thing. We recorded for maybe 10 or 11 hours total. And we'll be chopping that up into a bunch of episodes and releasing it in early April. And I think Saylor and I are going to record one more time as well. So don't have that one scheduled yet, but I think we'll put a capstone on the Saylor series as well. And I plan on doing it. I'm focusing exclusively on this now. So I'll be doing this with just the most prolific thinkers I can find in the world that want to sit down and talk with me. And we'll be talking about a lot of really interesting things.
And I think you mentioned Jordan Peterson, and I heard that you were planning on to orange pill him. But firstly, what does it mean to orange pill someone?
Yeah, so an orange pill is a mimetic reference to the movie The Matrix. It's a trilogy of movies. Have you ever seen The Matrix?
Yeah.
You've seen it? Okay.
Yeah.
There's that moment where Morpheus is talking to Neo. Morpheus is the guy that lives in reality, and Neo is living in the Matrix, which is the false reality. And Morpheus is basically recruiting Neo to join their team to fight the robots that, get them out of false reality. And there's a moment when towards the end of their first meeting, where Morpheus is sort of showing him the ropes. It's like, hey, everything you've ever known was an illusion. Here's the real world. Now you get to decide. It's your choice. Do you want to take the red pill or the blue pill?
Mm.
I may get these backwards, but like, you take the red pill. I think you take the blue pill, you wake up in the morning, back in your false reality, you forget all of this ever happened, you go on with your blissful ignorance. You take the red pill, and you awaken from the false reality. You join us in this freedom fight in the real world. But it's up to you. There's no coercion. You get to decide. And so the Bitcoin community has sort of adopted that as their meme of choice, and that to orange pill someone is to show them the worldview shattering reality that Bitcoin introduces to you, which in many ways is analogous to the Matrix, in that so many things you've taken for granted your entire life are just total scams and falsehoods, right? Like if you're American, at least you think the dollar is, oh, we're the strongest currency in the world. This is great. We're the champs. Our money's the best. And then you start to peel back the layers on that, and you realize, oh my goodness, this thing is not a free market selected technology. It's a derivative of gold, which was a free market selected money. It is no longer redeemable for gold, and it's being printed by a select few, a group of a few currency counterfeiters, effectively, that have protected that privilege with legal monopoly, that use it to siphon wealth off of the productive economy and dole it out arbitrarily. So the emblem of our national pride and strength, the US dollar, is in truth a pyramid scheme. One of the dirtiest investment scams there is, but that is what it is. And that leads on down the rabbit hole, right? Well, if money is that bad, well, what's going on with government? What's going on with central banking? And you get into that intellectual dark web mindset of questioning your reality, the institutions that comprise your reality. And memes are powerful. Memes, I think it's like the old saying that picture's worth 1,000 words. Memes take it to the next level, even, because they can be video, they can relate to a movie, they can relate to any visual artifact, and they're leveraging people. So the Matrix, for instance, we have a visceral relationship with that movie. When I see that movie, it calls to mind all these feelings I had the first time I saw the movie, maybe the second time, third time, all of the revelations I may have had during the movie. So there's an experience that's called forth when you put that out there. And when you start to, you overlay that visceral experience with something else, like, a Bitcoin. One of the best Bitcoin memes is a video of Neo like blocking the bullets and beating up the agents and all that. And it's showing like Bitcoin fighting the US dollar and all these things. So it's a tool of information compression, I guess. You can compress so much life experience and information into one little picture or video overlaid with some other relevant information, say about Bitcoin or whatever the topic. And yeah, it becomes an orienting point or a battle cry even for the community. People, we just say, oh, I'm going to orange pill this guy, or so-and-so is orange pilled. You just know what it means. And I don't know, it's kind of fun, kind of exciting, and really effective. So and by the way, I don't plan on orange pilling Jordan Peterson. I would like to humbly, this all started when I'm a huge fan of Jordan Peterson. He's, I think, one of the most profound philosophers living, if not the most. And his work's had a significant impact on my life. I read his book, Maps of Meaning, recently, and we just did, myself, John Vallis, Gigi, and Mr. James did a book club on Maps of Meaning. So we're reviewing or sharing our views on Jordan's book, Maps of Meaning, and drawing connections and parallels to Bitcoin, which is just a little ad hoc book club we did. And then 24 hours later, Jordan Peterson retweeted it and was like, oh, this is such a good thing. I'm glad you guys did this. It was really interesting to watch. And then he's followed all of us on Twitter. And now he's been exchanging messages with Gigi saying, hey, I want to have you guys on sometime, so I'll be in touch. He's busy with his new book release right now. So we're all, just fanboy, like, oh, we're so happy Jordan Peterson's paying attention to Bitcoin and us, and just really excited. And I just intend on hopefully sharing the philosophical, socioeconomic, and historical implications of Bitcoin with Jordan in a way that he will appreciate, and he will hopefully just see it in a deeper and broader way. I think a lot of people that talk about Bitcoin get hung up on the tech, and they get really focused on the innovation, which there's nothing wrong with that, but I think the real resonance you'll get with someone like Peterson is how this thing impacts the grand historical arc of humanity. And that's what I'd like to talk about with him.
Then you must be looking forward to that conversation.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
So you were an advisor at Swan, and now you're going to be the managing director of Swan Private. What do you think are going to be like the biggest changes between these two positions?
So I'm actually just advising Swan. I'm focusing fully on the What is Money show. So that was one small change up. And Swan's a great company. They help people, US only, unfortunately for now, auto DCA, so you can dollar cost average into Bitcoin, and auto withdrawal to cold storage. So it's the best Bitcoin investment strategy in an app in a nutshell. It's very simple, easy to use. They have opened Swan Private to international customers, so they'll help larger ticket customers buy, custody, and handle Bitcoin strategy. Very impressed with the team over there. I mentioned Gigi earlier, he's on the team. It's led by Corey Clipston, Don Pritzker, my good friend Brandon Quittem, many others. They just got a really rock star team over there. And yeah, they're doing great stuff. But I really had to make a decision how I wanted to allocate my energies. And I've, after a lot of soul searching, I landed on the conclusion that I basically just want to work for Bitcoin. So that means I maintain myself as an independent voice, and I channel all of my energies, talents, whatever I can muster, towards broadening Bitcoin awareness. I think is my gift, and that's what I'm trying to share, just to read, write, talk about Bitcoin. And so I really needed to have a laser focus on that for the next, I think forever. I think this is my life's work. So that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to just really double down and go all in on helping people see the light.
And I heard that you meditate. Do you think that meditation is necessary to get a better understanding of Bitcoin?
I don't know about necessary. I do meditate. I'm actually out of practice currently, I'm ashamed to say, but I've had strong practices for long durations at many points in my life. I'm 35 today. I think I started meditating when I was probably 24. Maybe before that, maybe 22, 23. So it is an incredible practice. It sounds extraordinarily simple, but it's kind of like Bitcoin. It fixes a lot of things that you wouldn't really connect to just sitting still and breathing, but it does. But just hard to maintain, life gets in the way, and I'm not trying to make any excuse here. I think I do want to get back into it. And I think for me, it has certainly given me, I've always had a predisposition to be a bit, I guess, philosophical or a deep thinker, as people have just told me my entire life, but definitely getting into the practice of yoga and meditation spirituality in general. Also, having read a number of books in those domains definitely deepens your perspectives on everything. And with Bitcoin, it's just amazing because it's the bottomless rabbit hole. So the deeper you go on Bitcoin, just the more things you discover. And you know, it's got a gravity. Clearly it has financial gravity, but I also think it has this intellectual and philosophical gravity as well. And for someone like myself that is a deep thinker by nature, I just find it to be a perfect fit for who I am.
Why did you start meditating in the first place?
I got lucky, actually. It's funny, my entire life, I had had trouble sleeping. Almost every night that I can remember going to bed my entire life, it was at least an hour to fall asleep every night. Usually more like 2 hours. Just I would lay down, my mind just exploding with thoughts, and I never knew how to handle that. I didn't know what to do about it. I thought it was just my thing. I just can't sleep. I could sleep. Once I fall asleep, I would sleep fine, but I would always have a hard time falling asleep. And I was third or fourth year at college. The girl I was dating at the time had taken a yoga class, and I had tweaked my back or something. Like I was typically lifting and running and doing all those things. I had hurt myself just minorly. And she's like, I think you'd really enjoy yoga. You know, come try and do this class with me. And I went and I did it, and I was just like, wow, it was hot yoga first, so it was really hard. But it's different. It's not a workout. There's the saying that it's not a workout, it's a work in. So you're really focused on your breath first. The breath is primary, the movement secondary. And the teachers I was fortunate to just have really good teachers. And I guess pretty much it's a moving meditation. So that was my intro. And then through yoga, I just discovered meditation and started practicing on my own. I started using the apps originally. I think I was using Calm, Headspace, a couple of guided meditation apps. And yeah, that's it. It's been an on and off thing for me, but very powerful. I think anyone out there that's in a creative field, if I need to write something and I'm having writer's block or nothing good's coming to mind, like sit down and do a 1 hour meditation. When you come back, you're gonna have some stuff. It's like every time you leave your busy monkey mind and you go into whatever that timeless place is, you come back feeling better. You're like more energized, you're calmer, you're biologically feel better, but your mind feels refreshed. It's like taking a spiritual shower or something. So yeah, it's a great practice.
Yeah, I personally though enjoy meditation so much. I find it quite boring, and most of the time I end up falling asleep. Did you also struggle with this in the beginning?
Well, I didn't struggle with the falling asleep part, believe it or not, because sleep was not my strong suit. Um, I did find it boring. The trick that I found that worked for me is I had a very dialogue. So mine's just always loud and talking a lot and fast about a lot of things. When I learned to just be able to sit in a place and actually train that voice to just recite, breathing in 1, breathing out 2, breathing in 3, breathing out 4. And you just go to 10 and start over. And you don't perfect, clearly, it takes a lot of repetition to get that because your mind will wander, and then you just have to see that your mind wandered, come back to the breath and the reciting of those words. And it just dampened my internal dialogue. And you get to this point where the words go away and you're just breathing, you're just physically present. And that's when you're getting refreshed. But you can't a lot of people get frustrated and like, oh, I keep thinking about whatever, but it's like that's normal. The actual practice of meditation is trying to focus on the breath, then thinking, getting distracted, coming back to the breath until you get so anchored on the breath that you actually stop really focusing on the breath even, and you're just physically present and breathing. The mind is just clear. It's blank in a way, um, but you're in another field. You're in a field that's almost outside of time, and that's why I think people call it spiritual. You know, it's something that's transcendent to space and time, and there's a lot of inspiration there. You know, I don't know, like things will just come to you. It's really powerful. And then if you do it consistently for weeks and months, you'll see it affecting just a lot of aspects of your life. Like your mood will improve, your sleep will improve, your diet, your health, your weight, your cognitive ability, your physical ability, your relationships. It's really unbelievable. I'm glad we're talking about this a lot today, actually, because it's really motivating me to get back into it.
Yeah, it's motivating me to try
Yeah.
it again.
I would say too, this last piece of advice that really helped me. When I first started trying, I would do like 10 or 20-minute meditations. That's much more difficult, actually. For me, it takes about 20 to 30 minutes to really sink into it. So I would say if you're going to start doing it, commit to doing an hour a day for like a month and just do it, right? No matter how hard it is, just do it and get the guided meditation app. You know, you have Sam Harris or whoever, you know, talking in a nice voice, leading you along, reminding you to breathe. That helps a lot. But if you commit to an hour a day for a month, you're going to see what I'm talking about.
So like a few days ago, I asked my Twitter followers about what topics we should cover, and they were suggested that we should talk about the Renaissance 2.0, and I think we got into that like some questions before,
Mm-hmm.
and I think my question is like, when will it begin, and where are we right now?
We're participating in it right now. We're bending time and space and having a high level intellectual conversation. Um, I've started to call it the digital enlightenment, though, because of the reasons I described earlier. I just think ideas now move more quickly than ever, and that's what the market is doing ultimately. It's a sphere of competing ideas, and you know it's hyper Darwinian, right? The weak ideas get killed, and good ideas survive. Maybe they combine, they make better ideas, and that's how we get smarter. That's how we advance. That is the thing people do, right? We spin up ideas and we debate, um, innovate, see the world through one another's eyes, learn, adapt. And I just think that the digital age has amplified that core human purpose in a way that we've never even imagined. Um, you know, it's one thing to have telegraphs and telephones and what have you, but now, I mean, this is a big deal. I think video chat is a big deal. Um, Clearly, just the mobile wave, being able to do everything is, you know, keystroke away, more or less keystroke, or I guess a screen swipe away. And now we've put money there. You know, that's the big inflection point. You asked about when things really get interesting. It's with the monetization of Bitcoin, frankly, because the only thing really holding us back right now are these analog institutions that have largely become anachronistic and that they're kind of useless in the digital age. And a general way to think about this is the nation state itself, or the government. The original purpose of government is just to preserve private property rights. They're intended to keep the peace for a trade network so people can trade and generate wealth. And if there are any disputes over that trading, they have recourse to the courts, right? They can resolve their disputes without resorting to violence. And the government takes a rake off of the whole thing, which they call taxes. And that's how we are more than the sum of our parts, is through trade. Bitcoin is a network that preserves private property rights without the threat of coercion or violence. So just think about how much expense goes into police, military, banking, government. We can just stop there. Like what percentage of GDP are those? It's a massive number. It's trillions upon trillions of dollars. It's probably a third of global GDP. It's just a tremendous amount of money goes into those functions, which are intended to preserve private property rights. Well, now Bitcoin mining provides that same, not all of the function. I'm not saying Bitcoin miners are like going to be police or flying fighter jets or anything of that sort, but that it preserves private property rights without needing recourse to violence or courts. It's just, do you have the keys? Yes or no? The end. That's the whole thing. So I think there's going to be a stampede of capital out of the legacy financial system where people saving their capital there face predation from governments via taxation and inflation. Governments are very broke. They're very over indebted. They're increasingly desperate to generate revenues. Their only two revenue sources are taxation and inflation. The more they resort to increasing revenue, the larger the incentives grow for people to exit fiat currency complexes and enter Bitcoin to save their capital in Bitcoin. And I think that dynamic is just going to bankrupt the nation state as an organizational model. And with that goes down a lot of wasteful laws. We're the most over complexified regulatory and tax environment in the history of mankind. The IRS tax code has like 9 million pages of text. I mean, there's an entire wealth of intellectual capital. Like some of the smartest people in the world are engaged with this layer that's just really obfuscating the theft of government, just making it really complicated. And I don't know if it's intentional or we've just gotten ourselves into a mess, but the whole thing is a waste of human energy and ingenuity. And Bitcoin really just breaks the whole thing down. It dissolves all of it. And we'll move towards a truly free market capitalist environment where people can self-organize, create simple and consensual rules. If they don't agree or they don't like the rules that have been agreed to, they'll be free to exit to another society and self-select other rule sets that are more favorable to them. And that's it. It will be much more of a bottom-up civilization than a top-down authoritarian mode of human organization. And we'll also be much wealthier because the lower the barriers or frictions to trade become, the more wealth we create. The more we trade, the more freely we trade, the more wealth we create. That is how we increase productivity. That is how we create wealth. That's the only way, by the way. The other common misconception today is that, the government's printing money and sending everyone a check. That's not money. They've created no capital. They've done nothing to improve the economic conditions of anyone at all. Although it may feel good when you get your $1,900 check. What they're doing is stealing from the future and stealing from all of those, depending on the dollar as a store of value, to give you dollars today. But they are detracting from the integrity of the entire socioeconomic hierarchy in the process. That model doesn't work. We have to get the monopolist out of money. And as anyone that's taken an econ course, I don't know if you've taken econ yet or when they start teaching that. For me, it was like 18 years old, first year of college, I took Econ 101. One of the first things you learn, I'm sure you can learn this on the internet in 2 seconds. Monopolies are really bad. It's a group that says, we are going to be the only ones that sell this product. And if anyone else tries to sell this product, we'll kill you or put you in jail, basically. And then, because they're the only ones selling the product, they can charge whatever they want to the customers. And since the customers have no other option, they can deliver them the lowest quality service imaginable. So they charge the highest price, deliver the lowest quality service. So the consumers get completely raked over the coals in a monopoly. And that's what we have in the world today. We have legal monopolies on money in every jurisdiction in the world. Central banking is an economic tyranny. And Bitcoin breaks it and fixes it in the process.
So the monopolies are a group of people, or?
Private shareholder interest. So yes. There are people that own shares in the monopoly. We don't know who they are, by the way. We have an idea, and there's a lot of investigative journalism that says who they are, but it's not disclosed. In general, you could just say it's the banks. The banks own the central banks. The central banks own the world. And if they don't own the world, they can print the money and buy the world. So we need to eliminate this entire notion of printing money from our lexicon. We need just one stable, fair, and equitable rule set in the sphere of money. And that's what Bitcoin is. It's a game with rules that cannot be bent or broken.
And if Bitcoin grows at the same rate, how will the world look like in 5 to 10 years when teenagers start their careers?
Well, I would say we're at $1 trillion market cap today. I think very conservatively, you could say Bitcoin will be at a 5 trillion market cap in 5 years and a 10 trillion market cap in 10 years. I actually think it will be much higher than that, but we'll just say it conservatively. The world, how will the world look? The world will, I'll recommend the book that I always recommend, which is this book, The Sovereign Individual. And it talks about the transition into the information age. This was written in 1997. And I guess the thesis of the book is that, kind of like Andreessen said about software eating the world, is that digital technology is eating the nation state model. So I think we're at a time today where there's peak distrust in government. Many people don't believe what they're being fed anymore. Even those that do, I think they're slowly waking up to what's going on here. And Bitcoin's price helps a lot, by the way, because it draws people's attention. They start asking themselves what's going on, what is this thing? They start studying Bitcoin. It leads them down the rabbit hole. They start to see the world in a whole new light. I think in 5 or 10 years that this narrative that we're talking about, the tyrannization of money, the fact that central banks are just, it's a criminal enterprise, essentially. You can't hide that truth in the digital age, as we're proving right now. There's no one that can put this genie back in the bottle. Right? The resources are out there, the materials are out there. Education, again, cost of information access has collapsed. Now, education is, via the internet at least, is orders of magnitude cheaper than it has ever been. You don't need to go to university to learn about this stuff. Actually, if you go to university, it will stymie your learning because they don't teach you about Austrian economics or the first principles of money. I have a master's degree in accounting and finance. I never heard one peep of Austrian economics in my education. I learned all through self-study. There's a reason for that, right? There's a reason that the economics profession preserves central banking. Central banking is, if you go and get a degree in economics, essentially your only employer in the world would be a central bank or a think tank, which is related to politics, which is related to central banking. So it's a very insular industry, to say the least. So they very readily throw out ideologies that contradict their teachings. With the internet, the rise of the internet and the rise of Bitcoin, I think people are going to be much more awake to this. I think governments will be forced to become more honest in their dealings with people because people just have an exit option. It's like, if you're trying to, really rough me up and increase my tax rate or decrease my level of services or inflate more, all of that's going to make Bitcoin's price boom and boom and boom. It's going to get more and more attention. More and more people are going to be losing trust in the government while they're also asking themselves what's going on with Bitcoin over here, which is a gateway drug to all these fundamental questions. And so I think it's an enlightenment type event. And I would just expect, I would hope that the young people, this demographic, say 15 to 25 over the next 10 years, will be very strongly representative of that awakening. Because it is your future that's being traded against. When they're printing money today, they're confiscating wealth from the future. They're making your life harder in the future.
And speaking of like college and like school, do you think that the traditional school system will get us there? Like what other alternative schools could prepare us for what is to come?
I think education is going to be decentralized. It is being decentralized today, with things like Khan Academy and all of its other varieties. I saw recently that Google's starting a certificate program where they're actually training people. They're seeing where there are gaps in the job market, and they're offering training, remote training for people to fill those roles, get a Google certified accreditation, and be able to fill those gaps in the job market for a couple $100. So it's a degree that's orders of magnitude more cheap than a traditional college degree. And I also think that in general, with all of the tools available to people to self-educate and train yourself and whatnot, that the university system will lose a lot of relevance. Now, I don't think it's going to happen in, say, 5 or 10 years, that say a Harvard degree won't hold any weight, but it is going to happen. There's going to be a point where a Harvard degree is not going to be what it is today. Because the main value that degree was providing was to employers, was to say, hey, we're very strict in our filtering process. We only allow the best and brightest in here. We test them and train them very hard. So when they come out of a Harvard program, you employer know that this person is of a high caliber, right? They've been put through a significant talent filter, let's say. That component could still hold some weight, but when it comes to actual skills, job skills, I think people will acquire these things much more in a self-taught, self-directed fashion online. And so you asked the question, what organizations can get you there? I'm not sure. I would just say, keep paying attention or start a business. I mean, this is a big need. I would say decentralized education is best for the autodidacts, the people that want to be self-taught. So if you're hungry, you can learn. And if you can learn, you can render value to society. If you can render value to society, you can make a job for yourself. So I think that's the way the world goes. It won't be, I need to get this degree to get this job and hold on to this company forever. That's right. It's going to be much more, won't be people having jobs, or I guess today we would say jobs have people. Like you're in a job for 20, 30 years, is kind of the old model. It'll move to a much more freelance environment where you just kind of take projects and you're a free agent all the time.
So, that was my last question that I had prepared. I am very grateful to have a chat with you.